Just in 5 months, there's been 59 deaths of incarcerated individuals. Docs classify these as follows: natural causes, 19, which is 32.2%. Suicides, three suicides, which is 0.05%. And for me, that suicide number is uh, very, iffy for me. And unknown, those deaths of incarcerated individuals that are unknown is 62.7%. 62.7%. Hello, critical thinkers. Hope all is well. Before anything, please like the video, comment on the video below, share the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It greatly helps with the algorithm. Just to give people some context, some time ago, I did a live stream and presented a presentation on whether the job of a correction officer in New York State is dangerous. My conclusions is that the job of a CO is not dangerous based on the Department of Corrections' own data. That live stream had some video issues. So in order to present you a decent project, I am basically doing the PowerPoint deck for you here. So this will be a shorter video, and I'm just going over the PowerPoint presentation to prove to you that the role of a correction officer in New York State is truly not a dangerous job. We are going to go beyond the headlines, beyond the media, behind the propaganda, behind the gaslighting, and give you evidence that the role of a CO is truly not a dangerous job. The first thing we have to do is go over definitions, because definitions have meaning and obviously they matter. So let's go over the definition of dangerous. Dangerous is able or likely to cause harm, injury, or death. Most definitions online will not have the death word in there. This is something that I added myself because whether the job is likely to cause death, whether there are cases of people dying because of interactions with incarcerated individuals is important to me, and I believe it's important to the topic. So one thing we will do is go over the New York State Correctional Officer line of duty deaths. So for the sake of this presentation, the look back period is 25 years, 10 months, and 15 days. These statistics, this data, is coming from DOCCS itself. At the bottom here, I have the URL that you can type in and look at the correctional officer deaths during this time period. And the number of line of duty deaths due to interaction with an incarcerated individual is 0. 0 deaths. There have been 0 deaths of correction officers in the last close to 26 years of correctional officers serving and operating in New York State correctional facilities. 0 deaths. The last death of a correctional officer due to an interaction with an incarcerated individual occurred August 1st, 1999. That correctional officer was Frank Midlars. That occurred in Great Meadow Correctional. He suffered a heart attack after attempting to subdue an incarcerated individual. There were also 3 line of duty deaths. Those 3 were automobile related. One in 1999, the other in 2009, and the other in 2011. And again, these were all automobile related. This occurred during the process of transporting incarcerated individuals. Now, let's go over the New York State Correctional Officer assaults and injuries. One thing that you may not know is that New York State DOCCS produces statistics on these numbers. And I link below the fact sheet that you can look up yourself. And again, New York State Department of Corrections, they put out monthly statistics. Those stats cover prison safety, assaults, injuries, and numbers on the prison population. Obviously, what this does not include the numbers of assaults, excessive force, torture of incarcerated individuals by correctional officers themselves. DOCCS does not keep these numbers. I could not find a place where DOCCS is keeping these numbers on the amount of assaults that correctional officers are giving to incarcerated individuals. One thing I could also not find, what these numbers do not include, are the numbers of homicides of incarcerated individuals by DOCCS staff. So the number of individuals that have died, incarcerated individuals who have died by the hands of correctional officers, DOCCS does not produce these numbers for obvious reasons. So let's go over some important definitions because, as I said before, definitions matter. Assault. Unlike the penal law, where physical injury is a required element, any attack by an incarcerated individual is classified by DOCCS as an assault. This includes events where no physical injury occurs and events where any object, including a small object, is thrown at and hits another person. By contrast, in the penal law, an assault requires physical injury, which means impairment of physical condition or substantial pain. Important to note that by how New York State DOCCS defines assault, no injury has to occur. Someone can throw an object toward a correctional officer and they will classify that as an assault. One thing we also have to look at is the definition of injuries and the classifications that DOCCS uses. We have no injury, minor injury, moderate injury, serious injury, and severe injury. No injury. Well, obviously, no injury means no injury whatsoever. So we'll go over the other four classifications. Minor injury. Injuries that require either no treatment, minimal treatment, scratch, bruise, aches, pains, or precautionary treatment. So this means if the officer received an aspirin because of potential pain, they classify that as a minor injury. Moderate injury. Injuries such as lacerations, concussions, second-degree burns, serious sprains, dislocation, and muscle or ligament damage is a moderate injury. Now, serious injury is classified as injuries that require transport to an outside hospital but are not considered life-threatening at the preliminary report. Severe injury, injuries that cause obvious disfigurement, protracted impairment of health, loss or impairment of organ function, amputation, and injuries that cause risk of death. These are what DOCCS classified as severe injuries. So it's important to note these are the dates, the time periods that I looked at in formulating my conclusions. I looked at March 2025, I looked at April 2025, I looked at May 2025, and I also looked at the period from January 1st, 2025 to May 31st, 2025. The recorded assaults on staff from January 1st, 2025 to May 31st, 2025. DOCCS classifies this as 785 assaults on staff. 785. The thing that we do know that we can come to the conclusion is that these are inflated numbers. 785 is an inflated number. We know this from the falsified reporting, which is common practice amongst correctional officers. If you haven't been watching the news or hearing the headlines, we know about Robert Brooks, we know about Messiah Nantry, we know about Christopher Keeles, and hundreds of other incarcerated individuals who have had bogus assault charges on them by correctional officers. We also know that this number of 785 is falsified, and also it's wrong because of how they define assault. The definition of assault needs to be better honed in on. So that's why the 785 number, it's malarkey. Now let's take a look at the number of recorded injuries on staff. Let's look at March 2025. For the month of March 2025, there were 849 recorded injuries of staff. Mind you, these interactions just are interactions when DOCCS is saying an incarcerated individual has assaulted a correctional officer. 849 injuries. But let's take a look at the breakdown of of how these injuries were classified. We have no injury whatsoever. 661, 77.8% of those injuries are no injuries. No injuries. We have minor injuries. 19% minor injuries. And remember how DOCCS defines minor injuries as any kind of precautionary treatment. So alone in the first two categories of no injury and minor injuries, we have 96.8% fall into no injury and minor injuries. Now let's take a look at the other more serious categories. Moderate injuries, 23 recorded. That means that is 0.02% are moderate injuries. Serious injuries, 0.003%, and severe injuries, 0.0%. These numbers are astronomically low in terms of moderate, serious, and severe. Let's jump into the next slide. Recorded injuries on staff due to assaults from an incarcerated individual in the month of April 2025, 804. Now let's take a look at the recorded injuries. No injury whatsoever, 659 no injuries, 81.9%. Minor injuries, 130, 16.1%. This ends up being a total of 97%. Yeah, this ends up being 97% are either no injury or minor injuries. I'm sorry, that's actually 98%. 98%. You have moderate, 0.01%. You have serious, 0%, and severe, 0.0%. These numbers are astronomically low. Now let's jump into May of 2025. 864 reported injuries on staff. No injuries, 611, 70.7%. Minor injuries, 234, 27%. So just in no injuries and minor injuries, we have 97.7%. 97.7%. Moderate, 0.02, serious, 0.001, and severe injuries, 0.0. Again, these numbers are astronomically low. Now, these are my conclusions regarding assaults and injuries. These are my conclusions. One, that if these numbers are accurate, incarcerated individuals are failing. They're doing a horrible job at being able to assault and injure staff. The recorded injuries are so low. So if correctional officers are truly being assaulted, there's a minute number that are actually being injured. This is why these numbers are falsified. This is why you can't go by these numbers. Another conclusion is that the definitions of assault and minor injuries, they skew the numbers. Because we have these definitions, these throw these numbers off and from face value paint a picture that's not accurate. So therefore, my conclusion is that the role of a correctional officer is not a highly dangerous job based on DOCCS' own numbers, based on their own specifics, the role of a CO is not a dangerous job. Now, one thing we have to look at is the assaults and deaths of incarcerated individuals. Let's take a look at these numbers. Deaths. Something I stated before, the number of assaults, excessive force, torture of incarcerated individuals by doc staff is not reported. It's not reported. They don't report on these numbers. The numbers of homicides of incarcerated individuals by doc staff, obviously docs is not reporting that. And one thing good to note is that the Marshall Project has data. They've looked at the number of OSI complaints. That could take you might be able to take a look at that and try to paint a picture of all of the potential assaults on incarcerated individuals by correctional officers. But we know the majority of these assaults by COs do not get reported because of retaliation. Now, here are the deaths of incarcerated individuals. Just in 5 months, there's been 59 deaths of incarcerated individuals. Docs classify these as follows. Natural causes, 19, which is 32.2%. Suicides, three suicides, which is 0.05%. And for me, that suicide number is very iffy for me. And unknown, those deaths of incarcerated individuals that are unknown is 62.7%. 62.7%. Why isn't, for example, the death of Messiah Nantry that occurred in 2025 in Mid-State? Why isn't that listed as a homicide? Why isn't docs listing the death of Messiah Nantry as a homicide? It's not on there as a homicide. And I believe at this point we do have the medical examiner's report. Facilities, the top 3 facilities that has deaths of incarcerated individuals. You have Coxsackie at 11, Mohawk at 8, and Wendy Correctional at 6. I took this picture from J.B. Nicholas on his website when he was covering the correctional officer strike. Now, this picture has this little caption here. This picture, they put a sign on this dummy that says, "This job is killing me." And this is my response. My response is no, you are killing us. We have the death of Robert Brooks. This is back in December. We had the death of Messiah Nantry. We had the death of Hector Camacho, which is still being investigated. And then we have the death of Adam Lafferty. For those of you who don't know, I did a live stream that was called "They Let Him Die." So we have deaths of incarcerated individuals. We have more incarcerated individuals dying at the hands of correctional officers. There has not been one correctional officer death in close to 26 years. So you tell me, who has more to fear? Those men and women who are incarcerated or those correctional officers themselves? If you got to this point, thank you for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Please like the video, comment below, share the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you feel compelled to, feel free to donate to the channel. We greatly appreciate your financial support. You can send a super thanks, a super chat in the video. Click on the icon below that has the thanks sign, or you can send a Cash App at $, CriticalConvoHR. Thank you again. Take care and God bless.